Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and I hope you're doing super duper fantastic. And today I had found myself scrolling, not doom scrolling this time, but I found myself scrolling through live streams on YouTube. And I found myself again, I was on this one that I had been on before, and it's this group of people. I don't know, a few of them, two or three, four. I'm not entirely sure. There's this one lady that kind of the ringleader of it all, and they are a group of atheists. And what they do is they just sit around and bash Christians mostly, and they will bring Christians on if they're if they want to come up and all that good stuff, and they'll beat them over the head with flaws they found in the Bible, the things that went on in the Old Testament, right? As far as the bad things that happened there. And I'm like, yeah, there are some things in the Bible that are questionable, no doubt. So I'm sitting there watching, but all they really do is bring Christians on and just beat them over the head. And I'm like, why are you spending your time and energy on this? I mean, they really are pretty militant about it. They're just angry. And I'm like, you have this. They do these marathon live streams, and that's all they do is just rip people who are mostly Christians. But I mean, I get on there occasionally, and I know I shouldn't, but I just can't help it sometimes, I guess, dear loved one. So I chime in, and I'm like, well, yeah, there are some flaws in the Judeo-Christian Bible. Very true. But why are you spending so much of your energy, so much of your life, just angrily beating up on people that to disagree with? And of course, they always flip it back around. Well, they don't let us live the way we want. I'm like, you're living just fine. In fact, you're able to get on here and do all this. You're not paying any penalty for it. So therefore, you're free to do what you want and all that. But anyway, so I just kind of proposed a different angle. I'm like, well, there is the like observer effect, okay? Because they're really hardcore about like just physicality, strictly materialism, that the universe erupted, everything came from nothing, because that makes sense. And anywho, so that everything came from nothing, and because of certain chemical processes and evolution and all that good stuff, eventually here we are. All right. So they say that without the brain, there is no consciousness, is what they say. They say that consciousness is not fundamental. So I'm like, well, there is the observer effect. And then I even mentioned the double slit experiment. Of course, I'm going at it from a different angle. I'm not getting on there and preaching religious doctrine, which is usually what people do when they go on there. And I'm like, no. The double slit experiment proved that without an observer, there is that it is just that there is no particle. There's no physical matter. It's a wave function. It is a possibility. It's just energy. It's the energy that it is required to turn something to turn it into a physical thing once it's being observed by a consciousness, right? But yes, they maintain, oh, you can't prove that. And I'm like, well, okay, you can't prove it either, right? But I'm like, well, I kind of can. Now, no, the double slit experiment is not definitive proof, but it sure is compelling. And when you look at the double slit experiment for yourself and you begin asking the questions of what does this imply, that's when it can become profound. Now, can you use that to prove it to other people? No, but this is your personal journey. This is your spiritual awakening, or not. But anyway, this is your journey. That's why I don't beat up on the atheists too hard. I'm like, look, you're having the experience that you are having. Somebody's gonna have to do it. Looks like you're the one. That's why I don't give them too much crap about it, even though they're pretty brutal. And they're pretty brutal even with me, because when I get on there and I say consciousness is fundamental, you can't prove that. Okay, you got me. Big deal. It's personal knowing. I know this. I don't have to prove it. And I don't care whether you believe me or not. But there is this. They are, as I said, I'm looking at my notes. They are firmly rooted in materialism. Hey, loved one, since we're on the subject, because we're not, go ahead and hit that like button for me. I would so appreciate that very much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that as well. Thank you. So, let's pretend, dear loved one, let's pretend that they're right. Okay? For 1 second, for 1 minute maybe, let's pretend that the atheists, the people who are strictly materialists, let's pretend they're right. Okay. Then I have no meaning. There's nothing I can do that's has any meaningfulness. Right? There's no meaning, no hope, no purpose. And as a spiritual person, though, I would never know if I'm right. Because to them, when my body dies, when my brain shuts down, I cease to exist. That's what they believe. They believe that everything about me is right here in this avatar. That the brain is where my consciousness resides. My brain is where everything resides. It's not a transmitter receiver. There is no me on the outside who's jacked into this avatar through the brain, more specifically through your third eye, your pineal gland, which is in the center of your brain. Okay, so let's pretend they're right. And I get to the end of my life and I die. If they're right, we'll never know. We'll never know. Because at that point, I cease to exist in their definition. All right? But I say, even if they are right, I cannot do that. Because for one, atheism, the materialism thing, it's just a bore. It's just, that's what I said in the previous video when I saw these people's live stream. It's just freaking boring. Because if this is it, this life here we have here, if this is it, it's like then there's no meaning. There's nothing. So even if they're right, I'm going to believe in a fairy tale. I'm going to believe that they're wrong. I'm going to spend my life exploring consciousness anyway. I'm going to, just for the fun of it, if for no other reason, but still, I'm going to spend my life exploring consciousness. Maybe even just for one example, maybe even remote viewing, and project my consciousness out into the field, out into the universe, and explore and make discoveries. Because it's like, what if you live that way, then there's really no meaning. There's really nothing to have any meaningful existence. See, by living as an atheist, as a materialist, you've got a short, maybe 100-year lifespan, and that's the end of it. And then you just return back to dirt, and that's just boring. And it's like, what's the point? You want to talk about becoming very nihilistic. That would turn a lot of people very nihilistic. So, it's like, even if that's true, let's explore anyway. Let's make discoveries anyway, right? It's like they like to point to science. Okay. Like even Albert Einstein, he did not like quantum theory. He did not like quantum physics because it flew in the face of the physical realm of the E equals MC squared, all that. It flew in the face of all of that because quantum physics shows that, for one, it proves the observer effect. And I know there's going to be some people say it doesn't prove the observer effect. It just proves that things must be measured. It's like, okay, but if there's no one there to observe the measurement, we can go back and forth on that all day. That's really just a matter of personal belief, right? But I'm going to spend my life exploring consciousness and making discoveries and just projecting out into the field, into the cosmos, and observing the beauty of creation, and learn how to also be a co-creator with the big cheese, with the big creator. And they're like, well, so you believe in God? I'm like, yeah, but I absolutely believe in God. In fact, I believe in God more now than I did when I was a religionist. And I was at one time very religious. I mean, I guess I was ever really super religious, but I definitely followed an organized doctrine. Let's just put it that way. But since then, since I have shifted away from that and become much more spiritual, I mean, I know there is a creator. I absolutely know that we exist in the mind of our creator. I know that the only thing that I can prove to myself, can't prove it to anybody, but the only thing that I can know, let's go with that. The only thing I can know exists for 100% for certain is mind. I know mind exists. Why? Because I am mind. All this physical stuff, physical things, yeah, they're here. I've got them in my hand. That's correct. But I also know that if we take a microscope and we zoom in on them, on the molecules that make up this notebook or whatever, we zoom in on the atoms that make this up. When we zoom in far enough, we see that it is mostly empty space. And I mean vastly empty space. And what little bit of something there, whatever there, is still just energy. It's an oscillating field. That nucleus is an oscillating field of energy. It's fascinating because that's when we realize, well, as far as physicality is concerned, really there is no physicality. In fact, I've heard it described a few ways. One of which was, if you took every atom that makes up every human being on Earth. Now, how somebody came up with this, I don't know. And even if they're not entirely true, if they even got close, it's still pretty mind-blowing. But if you take every atom from every single human being on Earth and you sucked out all the empty space and you squished it down to just whatever's there without the empty space. Every single unit, what do they say? It's like 7 billion people or something like that now. Whatever the case may be. Okay, it's like 7 billion people. Shrink it all, suck all the empty space out of every atom and every one of them. All 7 billion people would fit in a coffee cup. All 7 billion people, right here. That's how empty an atom is. And that lets you know that there really is no there. It's empty space. It's magnetic field. It's like there's the nucleus, and as I've said before, the atom from the outside looking at it's like, oh yeah, there's structure, there's a wall, it's an orb, or it's a spherical object, whatever. Okay. But when you zoom into it, you get in there, you're like, wait a minute, there's nothing here. There is no wall, there's no structure. What is that holds this all the electron, the nucleus here and the electrons? It's electromagnetic field, which is fascinating, which that's what gives it the appearance of structure from outside, but there is none. That's fascinating. It's to let you know there's really nothing there. It's all oscillation. It's an oscillating field of energy, frequency, vibration. So, but I look at these people who are atheists. I want to bring it back around now. And I think, man, even if you're right, which I know that you're not, but even if you were right, we'll never know, will we? Because by your definition, when someone dies, they're just gone. When the brain stops functioning, they're gone. Don't exist anymore. And even if they're right, that sucks. That is such a just sucky way to live. That is such a bore. I can't accept that. Well, I know that there's more to it than that. But even if I wasn't 100% certain, which I am, I couldn't accept that. I'd be like, no, I'm going to go ahead and chase the fairy tale that consciousness is real, and that mind is real, and that we do exist in mind. Because it's a much more fun and just a magical way to live. That way we've got something to explore. We have meaning. We have purpose. We have something to discover about ourselves, about creation, about everything. So anyway, loved ones, yep, I just kind of got on. Yeah, I saw that video again, those people again, and they're doing the exact same thing they do any other time I've seen. Well, it's only been one other time, I think. But they're doing the exact same thing they always do, just beat up on religious people. I mean, listen, I'm not a big fan of religious people either, but geez, just leave them alone. Whatever. They're on the journey they're on. We're all on the journey we're on. And so, and I realize, and it's like, well, okay, Matt, with those atheists, they're those materialists. They're on the same. They're also on the journey that they're on. And I'm like, I know, that's true. You're right. Somebody, somewhere, has to represent that side of it. Somebody has to have that experience, and there they are. Still, though, I'm like, man, really? That's God. I mean, I'm just kind of glad I'm not on that side. But hey, maybe in another lifetime, that's me, right? So there's that. Anyway, loved ones, if you haven't yet, please do me a big old favor and hit the like button. I would really appreciate that. Also, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done that. But also in the comments, this would be fantastic. Let me know what you think. What would you do if you found out that they were right? That it's just that the physical model is really all there is. I mean, how would that make you feel? Would you just be like, just screw it? Right? Or if you're not, I gotta believe if you're watching this, you are experiencing a spiritual awakening. I mean, what are your thoughts on those things? That's all. Anyway, loved ones, that's what I got. I do love you. I promise you I do. And I'll be back directly.